how do you think that schools can tailor their family engagement strategies to include underrepresented populations, right? How can what can they do to tailor their strategies to include folks who are historically not, uh, you know, receiving the same amount of representation as their counterparts?
Yeah. Well, I love that question because the essence and heart of these families and educator together teams that my book On the Same Teams about essentially addresses that question. Every month, these schools have a gathering where we've got maybe 10 to 25 underrepresented parents. And I'd say what's emerged in the 7 years and the hundreds of gatherings, I mean, some pieces are that initial proactive outreach, prioritizing relationships and trust, asking parents early on, first month of school, how do you prefer that we communicate with you? And then moving away from the norm of we're going to chat at conference time and at back to school night, but otherwise you may not hear from me, to building in ongoing communication. And I think, talking points, other text apps are great because, many of the families on our teams speak languages other than English at home. And the language piece is often a barrier and an excuse for the educators to not build the same kind of relationship so that families are continuing to be marginalized. So I think those are a few pieces. And then I think centering the voices of underrepresented families consistently to expose, what I say are like the biases, the barriers, and the blind spots of the educators and the school culture that's been developed that has not been shaped almost always by the voices of underrepresented students and families. And our gatherings, the core part of the gathering is us asking questions that treat parents as experts. And they see Dion over time by like the third or fourth month. Wow, this is a shift in the normal dynamic. School staff are building rapport with me. They care about what I'm saying. They're giving their nighttime to build a better relationship with me, and they're following through. I mean, I think that's the key piece. Is in the early years of this team, I saw greater trust and community being built in these spaces. But when we did more around, okay, what are we shifting in terms of how all the educators at this school are doing to better listen to and connect with families? So I'd say that's a key piece. Is once families have told us, how can this be a more inclusive, welcoming, collaborative space, that we actually make those shifts. And
Mm.
parent teacher conferences and a couple other examples come to mind of where it was listening to the voice of underrepresented parents saying this was dissatisfying and I did not feel valued, and then saying, well, what would shift it? And 4 months later, the schools I'm thinking of made those pivots, and families came back saying, I feel heard, I feel honored, I feel like they see my knowledge about my child. And I didn't just have to sit and listen to them talking, So
Mm.
I think those are some key elements of making that shift. That it's a co-creation, not just a token like, here, come a couple times a year, and then we're going to judge you
Mhm.
on whether you showed up or not.